Let's talk about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, because this is easily a Super Bowl contending team in the AFC, but they have massive financial problems. Now, before we get into the financial problems, I do want to talk about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow, when he's fully healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He's a great quarterback, but he has to stay healthy. This is a guy over the last couple of years, his rookie season, he tore his ACL. And we have seen him not start the season off hot because he suffered injuries in the offseason. It was a calf injury this season, and they started off very slow. When he got fully healthy, then he goes out and he hurts his wrist against the Baltimore Ravens, a freak accident. He has to stay healthy for the Cincinnati Bengals, because not only is he a great quarterback, but he's getting paid a lot of money as well. As long as Joe Burrow is on the field, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to have a chance. He is that much of an impact with the Cincinnati Bengals, and he's just a great player as a whole. But it comes down to the offensive line and to him being able to just start the season off hot as well. Like I mentioned before, the Bengals are a weird football team. They usually start a season off slow. They'll go 1-3, or they'll just go out there and go 2-4. You can't have that in this division. This is a tough division. You have the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Cleveland Browns are a threat as well when they're fully healthy. We're talking about teams in this division that have great defenses. The Cincinnati Bengals defense is very good, but it's not on the same level with the teams like the Baltimore Ravens or even the Cleveland Browns. And we're going to talk about that in a couple minutes as well. But I like what the Bengals have. You have Jamar Chase. You have T. Higgins, two number one true wide receivers, in my opinion. Now, this is when you get into the financial things. Orlando Brown signed a hefty contract a year ago, 4 years on that deal. And he did not look the best this season. He allowed 7 sacks on the season, and they signed him to be a true franchise tackle. He did not look like that guy. Not saying that he can't go out there and he can't be that true franchise tackle that he was over the last couple of years with the Kansas City Chiefs or even with the Baltimore Ravens. But this is a kid that is a better right tackle than he is a left tackle. Allowing 7 sacks on the season is not good enough. And Trent Brown was very good this season. He only allowed 3 sacks on the season. They drafted Amarius Mims in the first round. That's another tackle that you can add into the fold. I think you bring him in on heavy packages to where you're going to just bring in the extra offensive lineman. That's going to help out. But if Orlando Brown can't step up, do not be surprised they move Amarius Mims to that tackle position and they can see what that kid has. And I understand that he played a lot of right tackle at Georgia, but he could be a versatile player with the Cincinnati Bengals. Don't sleep on him. In terms of the wide receivers, Jamar Chase, he's holding out for a contract right now. The same with T. Higgins. I'm not worried about Jamar Chase holding out. I know a lot of people are talking about, it's a controversy there. Not really. This is a guy that missed his last year of college, came over to the NFL, and completely dominated. He's a great player. He's a great wide receiver. This is a man that could easily go out there and have over 1,000 yards receiving every single season in his career when he's fully healthy. He's dealt with some injuries in the past, but look at this season right here with Joe Burrow missing majority of the season. The offensive line still not being as good as the Bengals wanted it to be. 100 catches for 1,216 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. One of the best wide receivers in the game. Now, this is the very controversial part of the video. It's T. Higgins. He hasn't even signed the franchise tag just yet. 42 receptions on the season, 656 receiving yards, 5 receiving touchdowns, and he averaged 15 yards a catch. And you may say, hey, how is he a number one wide receiver with those numbers? This is a guy that missed time this season, dealing with a rib injury and a hamstring injury as well. Over the last couple of years, T. Higgins has been a baller. Let's go back to his rookie season. 67 catches for 908 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. His second season in the NFL in 2021, 74 receptions, 1,091 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns. In 2022, 74 catches yet again, 1,029 receiving yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. And he's splitting that load with Jamar Chase. And he was also splitting the load with Tyler Boyd as well before he departed to the Tennessee Titans. So this is a guy who could easily go out there and he could be a true number one. I remember a couple of years ago when Jamar Chase went down dealing with an injury, he became their number one wide receiver for a couple of weeks, and the offense did not miss a beat. Now, they cannot go out there and pay T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. In the ideal world, they can, but the salary cap has not been friendly to the Cincinnati Bengals. And this is a Bengals organization that passed. They have went cheap, but this is what happens when you draft great players. Jamar Chase is going to want a deal. If you pay T. Higgins right now, Jamar Chase is going to feel some type of way, and he's not going to take a pay cut. Jamar Chase is more essential to the Cincinnati Bengals' success because he has that great rapport with Joe Burrow, but T. Higgins is a baller in his own right. And now, the business side of things, I would say don't take another step on the field because if he does get injured, they're going to lowball him. And other teams around the NFL, they're going to lowball him as well. But if he goes out there and he has a great season and he signs that franchise tag, he's going to get a big money deal. Not from the Cincinnati Bengals, but from another team as well. And it comes down to the cap logistics because they allocated so much money to Joe Burrow and to this offensive line as well by signing Orlando Brown. And it has really handicapped this team. But I do think the Cincinnati Bengals will be good overall. That's why they had to go out there and trade Joe Mixon to the Houston Texans, which I think was a great deal for both sides. The Texans get a very good running back who is older, but the Cincinnati Bengals, they get to go cheap. They bring in Zach Moss, who is a very good player for the Indianapolis Colts. This is a man that you can get the football to 20 to 25 times in a game. He could be a bell cow back, but you also have a very good backup running back as well in Chase Brown. Chase Brown cannot handle the workload of a bell cow running back, but he can go out there, catch the football at the backfield. You can give him 10 to 15 carries in the game. He has amazing speed. This is a guy that took a 50-yard screen pass to the house this season. He is phenomenal. And when you look at Zach Moss, 183 carries on the season for 794 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns, and he averaged 4.3 yards a carry, that's going to get it done with the Cincinnati Bengals. So I think their offense will be good. It's just going to be very interesting to see what happens with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They're definitely going to bring back Jamar Chase, but T. Higgins is the biggest question mark right now on the offensive end. And it really just comes down to the health of Joe Burrow as well. I go back to that Ravens game. It was just a freak accident. This was a guy that was balling out. They were going on a win streak. They defeated the San Francisco 49ers. They went out there and they won their last couple of games right when things were starting off slow early in the season because Joe Burrow was still dealing with that calf injury. If Joe Burrow did not suffer that wrist injury, I could easily see the Cincinnati Bengals making the NFL playoffs and testing teams like the Buffalo Bills, who they have defeated very handily in the past before in the NFL playoffs, and they have always given the Kansas City Chiefs a lot of problems. So I'm not worried about the Cincinnati Bengals in the playoffs. They're fully healthy. I'm just worried about Joe Burrow making it out of the regular season and seeing what's going to happen with T. Higgins as well. And they may want to make a decision on paying Jamar Chase right now before CeeDee Lamb goes out there and possibly breaks the bank like how Justin Jefferson did as well. And if you don't believe that Jamar Chase doesn't see himself on the same value as a Justin Jefferson, you're kidding yourself. That is over $35 million a season that they will have to pay Jamar Chase, which is crazy in general. Now, the offense is going to still be in a very good place. Yes, they lost their offensive coordinator and Callahan, but Zach Taylor has always called plays with the Cincinnati Bengals. Callahan had a good rapport with the Bengals. They're going to miss him, but as long as you have your head coach there, the offense should be okay, especially if Joe Burrow is able to stay healthy. On the defensive end, I am worried, and I'm not worried about their front seven. I'm more so worried about their secondary. Now, I want to talk about the front seven first. Trey Hendrickson was a guy that went out there. He requested a trade because he wants to make more money. But the smoke got to clear out. He wants to stay with the Cincinnati Bengals. We will see what happens long term. This is another guy that's up for a contract extension. 17 and a half sacks on the season and 3 forced fumbles. He's been one of the best pass rushers in the NFL in the last 3 years. Forget just the AFC. Ever since he's come over to the Cincinnati Bengals when he left the New Orleans Saints in free agency a couple of years ago, he has been their best defensive player. They have to take care of him as well. And this is a guy that's been able to stay healthy. He is phenomenal. I go back to those playoff games against the Kansas City Chiefs. He was one of the sole reasons to why the Kansas City Chiefs where it was hard for the Chiefs to go out there and defeat the Cincinnati Bengals a year ago. It came down to Joseph Osai. He basically pushed Patrick Mahomes out of bounds. That pushed him into field goal range. But the year before that, when they went to go face the Los Angeles Rams, this man was all over Patrick Mahomes for the entire game. He is a phenomenal pass rusher. 17 and a half sacks in the season, and it's not just throwaway sacks. He's powering through double teams, and he's getting to the next level, and he's stopping the run as well. He is a franchise pass rusher, and as long as they have him on the field, the defense should be in a very good spot. Sam Hubbard has developed into being a very good defensive lineman as well. 6 sacks on the season, is a very good run stopper. You have Sheldon Rankins, who is also a very good defensive tackle. 1 forced fumble, 6 sacks on the season. You have B.J. Hill as well. Had 2 weird interceptions, but 4.5 sacks. You have a very good defensive line in terms of just putting pressure on the quarterback and stopping the run. Just because Trey Henderson's the only guy that has double-digit sacks does not mean that the other guys on this team are not having a huge impact. They're able to go back there, put a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and it helps out the secondary as well. The secondary is younger than it has ever been the last couple of years with the Bengals, but I think that they can develop to the next level. But as long as this pass rush can still go out there and do their thing, they're going to be in a good spot. And you also have guys like Myles Murphy, who's a very good young player as well, who's playing behind Trey Henderson. You could bring him in on rotational snaps. He had 3 sacks on the season. You drafted Chris Jenkins as well, Chris Jenkins Jr., who's a very good interior defensive lineman from Michigan, can push the pocket, but is known to go out there and stop the run. The one thing about the Cincinnati Bengals, you are in a tough division. Every single team wants to run the football. The Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson, they love to run the football, and they just brought in Derrick Henry. The Steelers with Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, go out there and stop the run game. Make Russell Wilson prove himself. Make him still have to go out there and beat you with his arm. The same with Lamar Jackson. You take away his running ability, you make him one-dimensional. And the same with the Cleveland Browns as well. They've always had an awesome run attack since Kevin Stefanski became the head coach and since they drafted Nick Chubb. So getting this defensive line, the front seven right, has always been a key for the Cincinnati Bengals over the last couple of years. Even before they drafted Joe Burrow, when they still had Andy Dalton, they were trying to get the linebacker situated and the defensive line as a whole as well. Logan Wilson is a very good tackling linebacker, 78 solo tackles. The very one interesting thing that a lot of people don't talk about is how good he has been in coverage over the last couple of years. Yes, he had 3 forced fumbles, but 4 interceptions. That was tied 7th for the 7th most interceptions for an interior linebacker in the NFL. That's very good. You have Jermaine Pratt, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 interceptions on the season, 63 solo tackles. I'm telling you, their front 7 as a whole, the linebackers and defensive line included, they are very strong up front. And I go back to that Minnesota Vikings game. Yes, you can say it was a shootout, but that defense went out there and they did their thing in the second half, and they made it tough on the Minnesota Vikings as a whole. That's the same game to where T. Higgins had the crazy catch and he extended over the pylon and it went for a touchdown. It's also another key play, speaking of T. Higgins being a true number 1 wide receiver. Their secondary. This is where I have a lot of problems with the defense of the Cincinnati Bengals. You no longer have Chidobe Awuzie. Now, Chidobe Awuzie was not a top 5 or top 10 corner. I'm not going to come on here and say that, but he was a very good cornerback for the Bengals. You now lost him. He is now with the Tennessee Titans. You now have to depend on guys like Cam Taylor-Britt, who's a very good corner. I think he could be their true number 1 corner over the next couple of years. He's young. He's very lanky. He's very good. He's very athletic, especially in terms of just bodying up a wide receiver at the line of scrimmage. This is a guy that had 4 interceptions on the season, 11 pass deflections, and 1 forced fumble, 5'11", 202 pounds, very good cornerback. But besides him, I am worried about them in that secondary because this is a team. They lost Jesse Bates, who had a huge impact on them. He's no longer here. He went over to the Atlanta Falcons. He looked phenomenal this season. This is a team that had to depend on guys like Von Bell and Geno Stone. And no shade towards those guys, but they're no Jesse Bates. And we got to see that this season. When I look at the rest of their secondary, DJ Turner, not a horrible corner, 7 pass deflections. He's 23 years old. He did give up some big plays, but this is a guy that can continue to go out there and develop. He could be a very good number 2 cornerback with the Bengals. And it's going to come down to Coach Lou as well, who's been a solid defensive coordinator over the last couple of years. You also have Daxton Hill. Now, I've been hard on Daxton Hill in the past. I'm not the biggest fan of him at the safety position, but as a corner, the position that he played in Michigan, I think that's his true position. As a corner, he looked very good. He had 2 interceptions, 11 pass deflections. Just put the kid at cornerback. I understand that they're thin at safety, but he's a way better outside corner and even a nickel corner than he is safety. It's just hard for him to transition over and play that position. Not saying that he can't go out there and be a very good safety long term, but right now it's not working out. And I think that they're hurting this kid more than they're helping right now by flipping him around the field. He can be a very good versatile player long term, but right now this team has a Super Bowl window. Just put him at the cornerback position, especially on some of the wide receivers that love to run the intermediate routes from 10 to 15 yards beyond. He can stick with those guys, but when he's a free safety, he has not looked as good. And I do think long term, possibly you can put him there, but right now, just put him at the cornerback position. That's all I ask. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Cincinnati Bengals, and can they be a realistic Super Bowl threat for this upcoming season? If they're not a Super Bowl threat, it's going to be a tough discussion to talk about with the Bengals. And no, I don't see them firing Zach Taylor if they're not a Super Bowl threat, because this division is just tough. You have the Steelers, you have the Browns, you have the Ravens. But when you look at the talent at Cincinnati Bengals, they're one of the most talented teams in the AFC. And I feel like this team is flying under the radar because Joe Burrow was not able to stay healthy for his entire season. I'm telling you, they are a different football team when Joe Burrow is out there. With or without T. Higgins, they're going to be in a good spot as long as that man is on the field for them playing. But let me know in the comment section below, how do you guys feel about the Cincinnati Bengals? If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like button. Most importantly, I want each and every last one of you guys stay safe, stay positive. Thanks for watching the video, guys. God bless. Peace.